A brutal crime took place down this street that changed U.S. history forever.
Now we're going to give you a warning on this one. This story is very brutal, but we feel like this young lady's story deserves to be told. Her name was Jessica Lunsford. She was a 9-year-old girl. She was kidnapped, assaulted, and also buried alive down this street here. We're going to tell you her story, and we cordially invite you to come along.
Come along.
On the night of Wednesday, February 3rd, 2005, Jessica attended church with a family friend.
We're at Faith Baptist Church in Homosassa. This is where Jessica attended church. She also attended a youth church class in this building right here.
Sharon Armstrong was a close friend with Jessica's grandparents, and she was the one who took her to this church every Wednesday night. She also worked with her on her studies. She said February 23rd was no different than any other Wednesday night of that year. She took Jessica to church here. She tutored her in math afterwards, and then she took Jessica back to her house. As Jessica was getting out of the car at her home, she looked at Sharon. She did the sign language symbol for I love you, and she walked away. Sharon broke down on the stand as she told this story because that would be the last time she would ever see Jessica alive. Now behind the church family here loved her and considered her part of their family. They have a memorial set up for her right back here.
When Jessica got home and got ready for bed that night, her grandmother Ruth Lunsford tucked her into bed, kissed her goodnight, and listened to her say her prayers. It was a normal routine every night at the home Jessica lived at, along with her father Mark and grandparents Archie and Ruth Lunsford. The next morning, Jessica's alarm clock was going off in her room, letting her know it was time to wake up and get ready for school. Her clothes were neatly folded and set out. She normally got up, turned off the alarm, and started getting ready, but not on that morning. Her father Mark had been out all night at his girlfriend's house. When he arrived home at around 6 a.m., he said he entered through a locked door. He heard the alarm going off in Jessica's room, so he went in to turn it off and get her up. When he walked into the room, everything looked normal. Nothing seemed out of place, but Jessica was not there. The only other items he noticed that were missing were the white shorts and pink nightgown she went to sleep in, as well as her favorite toy, a stuffed purple dolphin. He had won for her at the fair. Mark went around the house searching for her. He checked and couldn't find any signs of someone breaking in. After searching for a bit without being able to find her, he called 911. After talking to police, Mark began to drive around town, screaming for Jessica. The police brought in officers, dogs, helicopters, a mounted posse, along with a dive team to search local lakes. A neighbor even brought his own bloodhound along to help search for her. But no one could find Jessica. It's like she disappeared into thin air. A reward fund was set up for Jessica by former Atlanta Braves pitcher Mike Hampton, who lived in the area. His son was one of Jessica's classmates. He offered $25,000, then others chipped in to get the total reward money up to $115,000. America's Most Wanted covered the case, and the U.S. Postal Service worked with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children to help hand out more than 100,000 Deliver Me Home flyers with this picture of her wearing a pink fuzzy hat on them. Police began to question sex offenders who lived near the Lunsford home. There were 50 in the area, close to their home. On March 15th, police announced they had a person of interest in the case. The man was on the sex offender list and lived close to the Lunsford home. Police said the man had left the area about 2 weeks earlier, and they said he needed to return for questioning within 48 hours or they would announce his name publicly. He did not return during those 48, and police could not find him, so they released the name of 46-year-old John Couey as a person of interest.
Couey had a lengthy criminal record. In addition to being a sex offender, he had also been arrested a couple dozen other times in the past 30 years for various different offenses, including carrying a concealed weapon, burglary, disorderly intoxication, disorderly conduct, indecent exposure, fraud, insufficient funds, and other things. He had spent some time in prison, and he had a bad addiction to crack cocaine that had gotten worse in recent years. He had already sexually assaulted 2 other young children. When Jessica went missing, he had been staying with his half-sister at a trailer within eyeshot of the Lunsford home. Police in Augusta, Georgia were able to track down and arrest Couey, and he was very cooperative. He agreed to take a lie detector test. After the test, he said, "You don't need to tell me the results. I already know what they are. Could I have the investigators come back in?" When the investigators returned to the room, he said he was sorry he had wasted their time, and he told them where they could find Jessica's body at the home of his half-sister. Deputies set up floodlights and began to search the area around her home. Around 4 a.m. on March 18th, they found Jessica's body in a shallow grave in the yard, around 100 yards from her own bedroom. Couey admitted that in the early morning hours of February 24th, he took cocaine and walked over to the Lunsford home. He said he was able to walk right in since the door had been left unlocked. He walked into Jessica's room, placed his hand over her mouth, and told her, "You're going with me, and don't tell her nothing." He walked her over to his half-sister's house on Snowbird Court, where he had her climb a ladder to get into his bedroom. He said 4 other people were living at the house at the time, but they did not know what he was up to. He said he kept her alive through the weekend and assaulted her multiple times. He said while she was still alive, deputies had stopped by and talked to him at the house. "For some reason they came to my house, but they didn't come in and search. But I wish they would have, because they would have found her. But they didn't." He kept her hidden in his closet throughout the weekend, only letting her out to assault her in his room. When he decided he was done with Jessica, he told her she was going to be able to go home now, but he did not want anyone to see him taking her home, so she would need to climb into a trash bag, which she did. He then carried her out to the spot in the yard where police later found her. He covered her in dirt and buried her alive. "I buried her alive. It's stupid, but she suffered. She never fought me. I don't have a mean bone in my body. I didn't mean to kill this little girl." When police found her, she was tightly holding her purple stuffed dolphin with one hand. She had used her other hand to rip a couple of holes in the garbage bag. During Couey's trial, Assistant State Attorney Rick Ridgway said, "There in the dark, alone with the dolphin, she suffocated." Couey's trial was moved to Miami in an effort to find an impartial jury.
We're now at the courthouse where John Couey was sentenced to death.
On March 7th of 2007, he was found guilty on all charges related to the death of Jessica Lunsford. The death penalty was never carried out, though, because on September 30th of 2009, Couey died of anal cancer. Earlier that year, Couey's half-sister's mobile home, where Jessica was murdered, was burned by someone on purpose. It was vacant at the time.
We're at Homosassa Elementary School. This is where Jessica attended school.
She went to school here on the day that she was kidnapped, and her favorite toy, her favorite thing to keep with her, kind of her comfort, was a stuffed dolphin that her father won for her at the fair, and sure enough, there are 2 dolphins right there on the sign. The Jessica Lunsford Memorial Playground was built here at her school after her murder. More than 1,000 people showed up here at Seven Rivers Presbyterian Church in Lecanto, Florida, for Jessica's public memorial service on March 26, 2005. Hundreds of balloons were released in her memory.
We're at Fountains Memorial Park, which is where Jessica is buried.
We're going to walk over there and pay our respects now. Since the murder of his daughter, Jessica's father has been hard at work to protect other families from having to go through a horrific tragedy like the one they suffered through. He worked with legislators in Florida to come up with Jessica's Law, which mandates a minimum 25-year prison sentence, as well as lifetime electronic monitoring of any adult convicted of lewd and lascivious acts against a child under the age of 12. Similar laws have since been passed in 45 other states.